Welcome to the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Together we explore the vast landscapes of life, delving into the rich soil of experiences, sowing the seeds of curiosity, and harvesting the profound wisdom that each episode unfolds. Welcome back to yet another podcast of Harvesting Wisdom. I'm your host, Mike McMahon. This is my co-host, Dr. Joe Roselle, and my executive producer. Today we are, I think, in our third, maybe third or fourth episode of our trip to Africa. This one, we're still in Malawi, but now we made the journey from...
Long journey.
Well, I did tell you, there's some things you got to understand and how to get around, right? It's an eye-opener. I think the worst part was getting from the hotel, which is not even 10 kilometers, to Lukuni. That road has been under construction for 6 years.
Yeah.
They're getting closer. They're really changing the infrastructure of Lukuni. It'll make a big difference because they've been paving for a long time. But going up there is that's an eye-opener.
You said that we absolutely needed a four-wheel drive vehicle, and why? We're going on a road, but then you see the road so, with potholes about as bigger than this table.
And all of humanity on the road with you.
Yeah.
So, but then what we did was we took we need to know what we don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know, right? So we took a drive up, and we took Ernest with us up to Mzuzu.
And our driver, we have a driver.
Oh, yeah, we have our driver as well. And we drove up to Mzuzu, which is a long, I don't know how many hours. It was a lot longer than we thought.
Yeah.
And inside that. Now, that road wasn't too bad, right?
No, it was. But once you get on the other side, it gets
because
bad.
We had stopped by the farm on the way, but I'm not sure what episode that's on,
we also
David's farm.
But we had Brother John with us. That's why.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we went through that David's farm, which is probably where we're going to be hopefully growing hemp at some point on our own farm with them. So that was a little detour. By the time we finally got up into Mzuzu, we knew, oh my God, we're too tired. We're not going to make it all the way to Karanga. So we stayed at a really nice hotel and had a great time. And Brother John was there. He was another detractor. We tried to shoot his property for the future school, which is a co-ed school going in Mzuzu. And Mzuzu, amazing. The terrain is different, right? The vegetation, cooler, it's higher, and it's, we had to go through the beautiful forest to get there, and lots of fun with Brother John there, but it was too dark. We were out there in the middle of the night, and snakes.
But what did we see? We saw... That was where you first showed us about the Southern Cross.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
I can't believe we didn't weave that in yet.
Yeah. So, well, first time you've seen the Southern Cross is something special. But so anyway, with Brother John, we couldn't see it, so we stayed in the hotel. Next day we came back. We did the long walk.
I've never seen spiders as big as your hand. So.
Yeah, they were connected in a tree like a spider.
And I screamed. I'll admit it, I screamed, and I ran into the. Of course, nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
I went into the woods for the same. What the reason you go into the woods, and all they saw was me running out, waving my arms. So
yeah, it was pretty funny. But we saw a small farming operation right there, and then the river right below it, where you can see all kinds of activity of people. Taking the dirt and making bricks and so different things you can grow down there. But we're helping Brother John with the layout of the school, something we just kind of remembered. We've been so busy, but we do have to plot that and give him suggestions and ideas of what he has to do to get that thing rolling. So that's one thing. And then from Mzuzu, and Mzuzu, we met an old friend of mine from Malawi, who was the master gardener at the hotel that I always stay at, now is the master gardener and groundskeeper at the hotel in Mzuzu. and he took us on another tour, and an amazing guy, really knows a lot about composting and agriculture, and you guys will all enjoy him.
Well,
too.
and if you're an ecotourist, if you're interested in playing on a unique golf course, they have what they call browns instead of greens.
That's right.
So I said, "Wow, that's a big sand trap. Where's the green?" He said, "No, that is the green." So
it's the brown. Yeah.
It's the brown. So that was a unique thing.
Well, you're working with what you got, right?
Absolutely.
If you love the game of golf and you've never played and I know golfers. Golfers want to experience everything that golf has to have.
Oh, and it's beautiful.
And there's nothing like that. I mean, they're literally in the planet that I've ever seen. But so from there, we took the drive up to Karonga, which was amazing that we've even contemplated that we could make it from Malawi to Karonga in one day.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did it because the terrain changed, the vegetation changed, the people were all a little different. The environment was a different vibe everywhere we went. I'm glad we did it. But in the future, if you were short on time, for me, for instance, you can take a plane that flies you from Lakuni straight to Karonga or to Mzuzu and then to Karonga, saving a lot of backbreaking driving. But again, you know, unless you're walking, riding a bike, or at least driving, it's really hard to see the countryside and to stop and go to villages and get food or to check out farming. So anyway, up in Karonga, is this also the Karonga episode too?
Yeah.
So Robert, who has got an NGO that we teamed up with, Kim and Peter did, and again brought in, I think, our Plot of Sunshine curriculum to what they were doing. And it is amazing watching Peter and Kim working with the teachers and the students. They're so passionate about it. And they always drag me in to meet with every principal and everybody's looking for some kind of funding from me or whatever, but they're all really good people and they're proud of what they've done. My thing is I just want to talk about farming and talk about, okay, this is how you can work with your soils and stuff. And they take me into the schools. I love the kids. I like seeing them and stuff, but I'm just not an educator. I don't have.
But we got to go to a water treatment plant.
True.
And the prison.
The prison.
The prison.
So
was
the
cool.
prison's one of our projects where they feed themselves, right?
Yeah.
They do that. We saw the rice farming. That was introduced quite a while ago, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago.
It's what
maybe.
they're known for up there.
Right, because so Karonga is right on the edge of Lake Malawi. To get there, we're driving through some of the coolest land. Remember the bridge we walked across?
The bridge was interesting because it was across a raging river, and we all balked at it. And then this lady...
Yeah, I went about halfway. The rest of you barely went.
But then the lady with the baby...
She was pregnant, and I think she had stuff on her back that she was carrying.
Across like a
shoom, right across. So it's and on top of it, throughout this whole journey, by the way, we see people running.
Yeah.
And they're not running for the sake of, like here in the U.S., you know, Nike, just do it. Everybody's like, this is the thing you do or whatever. They run 10 miles a day to get to wherever they're going to work. And then they work a 12-hour day, and then they run 10 miles home, and it's part of what they do. And their running form is like amazing. You know, I used to do triathlon and stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's why, you know, Africans can like destroy me, or people who just live that lifestyle, you know, it's a healthier lifestyle in a way, right? But so anyway, we've got photos and we've got videos. Big long intro here, but I really hope you guys enjoy this part of the show.
But also, just to hit this point home, if you're doing the ecotourism with us, another very unique part of the world that you probably would never be able to see.
Right. And you just need to know how to go, what to do, how to get there, and what your anticipation should be for lodging. Lodging up in Karonga, it's there. It's not as fancy.
Or you could also make the mistake of taking the bus like Kim and Peter did, and it broke down 3 times. And I think it took them 24 hours to get up there. So, But again, that's why you go. With
you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and what's really amazing is how just from Malawi to Karonga, how people don't know what the other people are doing, right? And then the next episode, I'll talk about the...
Oh, you mean Lakuni from Karonga?
Yeah, what did I say?
Malawi.
Oh, yeah. Lakuni to Karonga. But from Karonga then, we drove almost all the way back, and then we went into Zambia.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into that next episode. So hope you all really enjoy this one. And really the next couple we've got coming on are pretty phenomenal.
Hi, this is Joe Roselle from Urban Farming Education. And of course, we have our founder, Mike McMahon. He told me a lot of things before I came here. He said you'd never believe it, but we're working about 14, 15, 18 hours a day, seeing lots of people. So let's kind of talk about some of the projects we've done in Lukuni and Malawi, because we've talked to people ranging from headmasters to the sisters of a convent to the Ministry of Education. So let's start with Lukuni. Let's talk about some of the partners we've done down there. Let's look at the schools. You actually had the opportunity to go into the schools and do a soil test to teach the kids. Why would we want to, as an organization, do something like that?
Well, for me, it's always the foundation of any kind of agriculture is soil. So it's the first and usually the second, third, and fourth thing I talk about. And of course, seed propagation follows that. But I've been to Lukuni schools for 4 years. What we started with is meeting with our man on the ground, Ernest, and going to his house where he has intensive planting going on, and intensive sustainable agriculture, urban farming truly at its true nature with animals, and he's experimenting all the time with different plants and growing small stuff. From there we went out to his farm, which was about 3 acres, and it was really cool because we got to see what he's done so far in 1 year, and how he's grown with using compost and mulching over soils, planting companion plants, planting again a little more dense to control weed and to control sunlight. By doing what he did in growing the 3 sisters, he was able to increase yield per acre. He had a lot of diversity in plants that he was growing. And then we looked at the farm next door, which was a complete failure. They used a synthetic fertilizer, tried to grow corn in a traditional way, and we had a drought this year. And for fertilizers to get to roots, they have to be, water has to be there to move the nutrient into the roots, and you also have to have biology that's existing to help you with that. Your microbes are eating the organic material and that sort of thing. So that didn't occur, and what that means is that farmer who invested an entire year, all of their family money, was unable to harvest, whereas with Ernest's farm, he had a bonus crop and a variety of crops. So we know that what we're talking about is working, and it's a perfect example. We then went over to the school and we met with the sisters at the hospital. They invited us to a nice lunch, showed us what they're doing with chickens. So with the chickens, they're now sustainable. We bought chickens, they were able to raise them. Now with the multiplier effect of that, they can raise their own chicken without any other investment. That's what they're doing. So they have the benefit of taking the eggs and the egg shells, which is great fertilizer for clay soil. They're able to actually take the dung from the chickens and use that also, and or sell it or give it to people who are growing. So it's a full cycle, and it's working. So I know it's working because they're not asking for more money to keep it going, right? We then went over to the girls' secondary school where we had put in a solar dryer, and again, it's a working system. As different vegetables are cropping out, there's such a bonus of how many you have. You get to the point where you get tired of eating any one crop. Even if it's a delicious mango or an orange, there's only so many you can eat during the time period where you're cropping it. This is a way now you don't need electricity or fuel of any sort. They're able to dry and store those same plants for later on. So again, it's another program that was put in that's working. We also saw some cool. Every time we go somewhere, we're learning about the soils and everything else, but also different systems. Ernest is always experimenting with different things. So it's fun to talk to him and say, "Did you try that? No, I tried this." That kind of thing. And at the school, we did an experiment with the boys, which is USDA, an experiment using a jar, and we were able to separate the different layers. Everybody was guessing how much we had of this and that. This way, there's no more guesswork. We know how much clay and sand and how much organic matter is in there. That understanding allows us to then modify the soils and try to do what we're doing now here is in Karanga. Peter and Kim have been working with the school or with the classes, and they're doing controlled experiments. So the controlled experiments happen to be growing a particular vegetable type. I think it's radish that they're growing, and the kids are learning kind of this scientific method, which Peter would kill me if I said it, but that's exactly what it is, where they determine the project, and that is they're trying to figure out a better way to grow that radish, and the kids have to come up with a hypothesis of what that is, and whether it's the effects of global warming, which is your soil is getting too acidic. How do we change that? Or it's the fact that we're in a clay soil. How do we change that to try to make it more of a loam soil? The other thing they're looking at is the spacing of radishes. There's a kind of a spacing that is recommended, but some of the girls are in there. They're going to make it wider or closer to see if there's any kind of effect. Use the use of mulching. So there's a lot of different things going on, but it is part of the program that's an essential part of the program because we're bringing it to the schools.
And we actually had the opportunity to meet with the Ministry of Education, and and this isn't my term, it's your term. It's holistic management.
Right.
We're looking at the system as a whole, and a lot of the projects you talked about, you kind of framed it like that when you talked to the schools. You said, okay, this is working, but this is what you need to consider if you're going to have a system. So we talked about that with the Minister of Education, and really what we are trying to discuss with him is looking at the curriculum and making it practical so kids can learn at the school but also take those lessons at home and support themselves. And our man on the ground, Ernest, has a very innovative project with chickens where we're going to do animal husbandry with chickens so that the students not only can learn how to do that, but they can actually pay their own tuition, which is great as well, too. So looking at that, what are some of the highlights when you think of the system, would you say as a whole?
I would say one thing, we looked at the chicken project at the boys' secondary school. There's two great teachers there, and it's been successful. They started with so many chickens, and now they've expanded it, and they're not asking for more money. But both them and the students are realizing, hey, we had a little more mortality than we wanted. And the teacher was telling me, hey, chicken feed is too expensive. So I think they're cutting, they're putting the chickens on a diet, and that's not a good thing. But so we talked about, well, let's look at the entire system involved, right? So it starts with soil. It starts with composting, and we composting green and brown wastes. We can use some animal manure. We're here at one of the Great Lakes of Africa is about 100 yards away from us. So we have fish, which is a great nitrogen source. So the idea is amending soils. You need to start by knowing what your soil is. That gives you a pretty good idea of what amendments you want to add. If there's no resources for gypsum, for instance, in the neighborhood or in this area, you've got to be creative and add more organic material to it. So, and the process that the kids are learning at school is one of experimentation. Any farmer knows, first of all, experimentation can be expensive. If you try it all at once on one big field and it doesn't work, you just killed yourself. But the idea is that it is a process, and no one knows the answer because you're dealing with nature, and you don't know if this year is going to be a drought or that kind of thing. But example at the girls or the boys secondary school is they're starting to have some problems with the feed. So you start by growing a better plant. The plant itself, we have to decide which seeds we want to take off. We're growing some, I think, some soy, some sunflower. We talked about the idea of growing some hemp, but taking different seeds with different nutrient values. And it's just like the soil. We're looking at, the human body needs NPK, so do chickens. So we're looking at what's going to give us the most protein, the best carbohydrates, what's going to make a healthy chicken, because that's what we want to eat. We also want to eat one that's got a lot of meat on it, right? That's the whole idea. So my answer to the teacher was, well, you need to grow, get that seed, and be able to blend it maybe with some free things like spent beer hops and barley that's local. Blend that in, or it could be corn or corn husk or whatever it may be, that you're blending some of that high nutritious food, but now you're controlling that. Now you're able to feed the chickens. So it's an entire cycle. It's always starting with the soil, and then it goes all the way around that cycle.
So we're at Urban Farming, we're looking at also helping with sustainability. We're going to form an international board with partners here in Malawi and the United States. So we've engaged with 3 nonprofits, several schools. We're really excited about that. For me, in talking with the teacher today, she was really excited because typically we come out once a year. And this enables us to not only share the knowledge from you, because you're a resident expert, but also other local organizations, local farmers like Ernest. They're able to share their knowledge, and we're able to meet once a month. What do you see the impact of this board having on the communities in Lakuni and Karanga?
Well, I think what you're getting at is that we're trying to spread what we're doing, the lessons that we're doing, the people that we're working with, because it serves no purpose if I know something and it's not being used. I mean, the idea of our podcast, Harvesting Wisdom, is to take the wisdom from other people, and there's a lot of wisdom here people have been growing here for 1,000 years. They kind of have a pretty good idea what grows, what doesn't grow, and how to work. We passed by some huge mountains where they terraced the land all by hand and grew on that. So they already have a familiarity with things. Now the question is how do we bring in maybe some of the ideas we have, some of the science behind it, to help them work easier, work smarter, and get better results for it. And that's the idea. And the more people we have in our international group, the easier it is to spread that. We work with the Marist Brothers schools. We ideally are going to be working in different countries with them, but there's different stakeholders in each place. One thing we forgot to mention was the prison.
Oh, that's right.
The prison right here in Karanga is doing what a lot of what we want to do in the schools, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
They have a very large garden, and the prisoners grow their own food and cook their own food, and kind of important for them because they don't eat very much. The government doesn't supplement a lot more, so they have to take what they're doing serious, and they do, and they're growing a lot of different things. They ask for a little bit of help, not a lot, but they want to be able to get a little temporary irrigation setup that's mobile that we can help with. But we also looked at the soil and said, hey, look, if you cover that soil with some mulching, it won't dry up and clot out on you as much. If you're rotating the plants a little bit more, you can get better results. If you're using some composting, and they can use green compost as well as getting fish right out of the lake, and now they can improve everything they're doing, combating climate change, but it's not that difficult to make these minor modifications. Climate change is something that takes decades and decades and decades. So we're able to control those variables, those independent variables, and help them do what they're doing at the prison. But it is kind of a cool thing, and it's the mother of necessity, right? Is the mother of invention is necessity.
Yeah.
Well, those 80 prisoners got to eat.
Yeah.
So you can't get more necessity than that. And because of that, they've got a great garden that they're doing. And it's so easy to share a little of the knowledge we have to have them improve that. And that's another case in point or a model in point that can be spread throughout on how it works.
So what you're talking about is what we really push, community and capacity building. So every place we go to, you spend time with every partner, just kind of evaluating the systems and giving them some advice. Now the crazy thing of it is, it feels like we've been here for 2 months. We've only been here for 7 days because we're going 18 hours a day. What's next? We still have about another week. Where are we going next?
Well, I've been here for a few extra weeks.
That's right.
In Africa, but we are going to stay here for another couple of days. We've got Robert, our partner, has his own NGO right here in Karonga. He's extremely connected in the community, and without partners like that, we just can't be effective. And the whole idea of what we want to do is to be effective, right? I mean, why beat your head against the wall when you can actually make change? So we've got the rest of today, which we have a pretty heavy schedule, and then tomorrow as well. And then from here we go to Zambia. Looking forward to learning from what they're doing over there, because there's one of the brothers running a school. It's remote. We're driving 20 hours and just to spend the day with him. But he's got koi ponds. I mean, he's got his own animals there. He makes his own ice cream. He does amazing things. Well, we're going to be meeting with this provincial, I don't know what they call them, magistrate of the...
Kind of like an area superintendent for all the schools.
Right, of Southern Africa. So there's 6 countries, and the idea is to get the various brothers that actually, or teachers that are actually really passionate about agriculture, to share those ideas, and they rotate from school to school to school. So if we can help them with instituting a program that's working, and we already got a guy who's doing, like, there's always that one green thumb in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And this guy is the one, so great to get his ideas and spread those as well, and I'm sure we'll have that on our podcast.
And then we've got some cool things going on in Zimbabwe too, right?
Oh yeah, Zimbabwe is kind of the icing on the cake with Tiki and Arnold. They're doing things at a very large scale, which we're starting to do here as well with Ernest. We're starting to look at farms. But in Zimbabwe, we have Tiki's very large program in the bush where he's rewilding, which is so important because we've talked climate change. Well, part of it's not just climate change, it's, people who need food that are growing unsustainable crops like corn over and over, and they're desertifying. People need to eat. They're going into the bush, they're killing animals. He's come up with a system on a large scale that's really combating that, to live harmoniously with animals. And this is one of the few places left on Earth that has big game like that. And the respect for that, the villagers are starting to see it, but they have to learn how to farm and raise their own animals to be able to do that. So that's another big one that we're talking about. Seems to me that we're missing one other component, and that was our partner that another NGO that they have 2 nonprofits.
Oh, David.
Yep. And we'll work on a landscape project, which is improving the boys' soccer field. But they do all kinds of things too, and we look forward to those relationships. So you can get more done with a large group, a large community, than you can as an individual silo. There's just so much you can do with an organization. We feel like our organization has its own structure, its own products, its own services. We feel like we have something to offer, and we can work with these other NGOs, some of which are struggling to figure out the whole accountability aspect and that kind of thing. And we've taken our time here. We've been, I think we're going on 5 years, and working with and locating good solid people, but also looking at the natural resources. And Malawi has all the natural resources right here at their disposal to be able to grow and to manufacture and to do all the things they need to support themselves. It's just a tiny tweaking of help. It's not big, World Health Organization or USAID monies that come in and get misappropriated, or programs that it's really at a community level, teaching people to do things that allow them to be self-sufficient, and that's what we're all about.
Now, the great thing about this is you might be saying, okay, you went on a 2-week journey and this is all we get. The answer is no. This is going to be a 7 or 8 week podcast series where we release podcasts once a month, or once a week rather. Not only that, this is the exciting part. You can be engaged in this process. We're actually going to take partners with us next year. So as you're watching these videos, think about how you can get involved and get engaged. Is this your passion? And you'll have the opportunity to look at agriculture. You'll have the opportunity to look at nonprofit work, but you can really take a look at the different regions that we travel, see where you connect. But more than that, you get the opportunity to explore Africa as a whole. And this is a passion of yours. We're not one of those nonprofits where we want people to write a check. We actually want them to roll up their sleeves and get involved, right?
Right. Well, we want to take advantage of people's wisdom wherever they may be. So there's people that are in engineering or in business, and they're thinking, well, why would I be, in Africa, the other side of the world, and or why would I? And the whole idea is that, people spend their entire lives, some people on very specific journeys, whether or not it's programming a computer or it's running a business. And especially when people are getting toward retirement, they have all this wealth of understanding and knowledge. They just don't know where to direct it. And I think this is a perfect place to direct it, because you can create so much impact for so little by just sharing what you know and being involved.
Yeah, that's a great point. You spend your whole life gaining knowledge, and when some people retire, that's it. Yeah. We're giving them the opportunity now to use that knowledge to help in another part of the world.
In a non-stressful situation where what you end up doing is spending more and more of your own energy, because you start becoming passionate about it. But it's not like a 9-to-5 job that some people had, that they just wanted to retire, play golf, play cards, and drink. You still can do those things, but this is a way to explore the world or part of the planet that a lot of people in the U.S. don't come here because it's just so far away. But for us, it's coming for 3 weeks minimum and seeing some amazing things. I mean, you and I drove from Mzuzu to here, one of the most beautiful places on the planet, right? And you haven't even seen anything yet.
Well, and you made a good point. So I actually was the one that tried to do some of the logistics, and your point is you don't know until you get here, so that's another advantage. You've been coming here for 5 years. You've traveled to about 10 countries here in Africa, and that's part of the appeal too. I think Africa as a continent could be intimidating if you don't know where to go or how to get around.
Sure.
So you've had experience on the safaris, on doing the charter flights, or we now have somebody that helps us with transportation logistics in Malawi that can help us get around.
In South Africa, we've had them in Zimbabwe and the whole thing. So it's been a good journey, good experience, and I think we're ready to hit a tipping point where we're actually very involved and starting to become more and more effective.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm Chimwemwe Miti, head teacher for Kalonga Girls Secondary School, CCP. It's a grant-aided secondary school, which CCP means Church of Central African Presbyterian School. So it is a grant-aided secondary school, which has got a population of 400 students, which is on boarding. And those who commute, there are also 420 students which are in the open, which is, we call it as a distance learning. So they just commute. So as a teacher or as a secondary school, an institution, we have 28 teachers and 17 support staff. On selection of this school, all the 50% of the students are selected by the government, and the other 50 is selected by the church. So the church also do the right exams and they do the selection as well. And however, the support staff is paid by the church itself, while the teachers, they are paid by the government because they are employed by the government. So all the teaching staff is paid and employed by the government. As the implementing of our curriculum, there is a subject which is agriculture, and within agriculture there is that entrepreneurship which is there, whereby we are looking at entrepreneurship which is environmental friendly, as well as where students will also grow a variety of crops which are favorable, where they will use manure, or else they will use any other components manure which they can be, which is already locally available. So as one way we are practicing at CCP Kalonga Girls Secondary School, we also embark on the project whereby we have our garden, and that garden will produce several types of vegetables. We have Chinese, red, as well as cabbage and tomato. So within that garden, we saw it the importance of training our youth, our future generation, so that they should be responsible. They should know how to cultivate their own crops with organic manure, and in so doing, they will be able to control the environment. They will be able to control the soil when they go out there. So as part of development, as part of training, we train them academically as well as practically through the gardens, whereby they cultivate their own crops. So that gives them ownership of those particular vegetables which they are growing. They know how we have grown these vegetables, and they enjoy because they know how they struggled. They know what they went through when they were producing those vegetables. So that has really gave a positive impact on their girls. They are able to cultivate the crops, and they are able to take the information out there to the community during the holiday. They are able to do the same when they are at home, because we have been telling them that when you go home, assist your parents to do this small garden, plant in your sacks some vegetables, and you cultivate from there. So that will also minimize, because the money which they could have spent buying vegetables, that money will be stored for them to come with. They can buy groceries for them, they can give them as pocket money. So that's what we have been advising our girls, and that's what they are practicing. We are much delighted with the new variety of radish, vegetable which has been introduced at our institution, and we have planted it, and the seeds have already germinated, and we are very eager, and the girls are eager to enjoy that vegetable because we eat each and every part of that vegetable what we have laid. So girls are really ready and waiting for when it will be matured so that they can give a taste to the radish vegetable. Thank you.
Urban. Farming. Education. Now everyone turn around and say, hi, Mike.
Thank you for joining the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Click subscribe and like for ongoing insightful conversations. Explore our webpage for show notes and additional resources. Visit our guests' webpage for deeper insights. Your engagement is the foundation of our journey, and until next time, keep pursuing wisdom.